The Employee Retention Credit from the IRS is the last major COVID relief program. Claim up to $26,000 for each employee you had on payroll. This is Marty Stewart with Disaster Loan Advisors. The IRS tax refund is newfound money for your business. Let us help you navigate the ERC program with flexible options and working together. You can relax and have peace of mind that you're in good hands. Stay safe, stay compliant, and keep more of your refund. Take the next step and schedule a free ERC consultation call with us today.
Can you still claim the Employee Retention Credit for 2020? Is it still possible to claim the Employee Retention Credit for the 2020 tax year? In these challenging times, it is essential for small to medium-sized business owners to stay informed about financial relief options that can support their operations and workforce. One such option is the Employee Retention Credit, a fully refundable tax credit designed to help eligible employers navigate the economic hurdles of COVID-19. You may be wondering if you can still claim this valuable credit for your qualified wages from the 2020 tax year. The answer is yes, as long as your business qualifies. You can still claim the Employee Retention Credit retroactively in 2023, 2024, and 2025. What is the Employee Retention Credit? The Employee Retention Credit is a refundable tax credit introduced in the CARES Act. It is designed to provide financial relief to employers affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Purpose and eligibility requirements. The primary purpose of the Employee Retention Credit is to provide financial relief for eligible employers impacted by COVID-19, encouraging them to maintain their workforce during challenging economic times. To be eligible for the ERC, an employer must either experience a significant decline in gross receipts or operate under a partial or full suspension due to government orders related to COVID-19. A significant decline in gross receipts is defined as at least a 50% reduction in quarterly average annual gross receipts compared to those earned within the same third and fourth quarters as of 2019. Eligible employers encompass both private sector businesses and certain tax-exempt organizations. Notably, self-employed individuals are not eligible concerning their income from self-employment, but their paid employees may qualify if they have employees who receive wages paid by them. Overview of the ERC for 2020. Are you a small to medium-sized business owner wondering if you can still claim the Employee Retention Credit for 2020? The ERC was introduced as part of the CARES Act in response to COVID-19, and it provides eligible employers with a refundable tax credit against certain employment taxes. In this blog post, we'll provide an overview of the ERC for 2020, including eligibility requirements, maximum credit amounts, qualified wages, and changes made in response to the pandemic. Stay tuned to learn more about reducing your tax liability and retaining employees through the ERC. Maximum credit amount and qualified wages. For the 2020 ERC, eligible employers can receive a refundable tax credit equal to 50% of qualified wages paid to employees, with a maximum credit of $5,000 per employee for the entire year. Qualified wages are determined differently based on the employer's average number of full-time employees and part-time employees in 2019. Those with 100 or fewer full-time employees can claim ERC for all employee wages, even if they continued working full-time employees despite COVID-19 disruptions. In addition, qualified health plan expenses, such as employer-paid health insurance premiums, may also be included when calculating qualified wages for ERC purposes. For example, if an eligible small business owner paid $8,000 in salary and contributed $2,000 toward their employees' health insurance costs during a qualifying period in 2020, they could potentially claim up to $5,000 as employee retention credit against their employment taxes. Credit limits and phase-out. In 2020, the Employee Retention Credit allowed eligible employers to claim a refundable tax credit of up to 50% on qualified wages paid to employees, with a maximum credit limit of $5,000 per employee for the entire year. For example, if an employer paid an employee $12,000 in qualifying wages throughout 2020, only the first $10,000 would be considered for calculating the ERC. In this particular scenario, the employer would receive a tax credit worth $5,000, effectively reaching the annual cap for that specific employee. Eligibility criteria for claiming ERC for 2020. Read on to learn who can claim the ERC for 2020 and what changes were made in response to the pandemic. Who can claim ERC for 2020? Employers who had to partially or fully suspend operations due to government restrictions or those that experienced a significant decline in gross receipts can claim the ERC for wages paid between March 13th and December 31st, 2020. This credit, regardless of size, is available to eligible employers, including tax-exempt organizations. In addition, businesses that started operating after February 15, 2020 can also qualify for this tax credit. Changes made in response to the pandemic. To help businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic, several changes have been made to the Employee Retention Credit. For example, Congress expanded the ERC retroactively to March 12, 2020 via the Consolidated Appropriations Act. This expansion allows more small and medium-sized businesses to claim employee retention credit for wages paid after March 12, even if they had received a PPP loan. Additionally, eligible employers can now take advantage of advance payments on their expected credits for Q3 and Q4 of 2021. How to claim the ERC for 2020? To claim ERC for 2020, eligible employers must file Form 941X, Adjusted Employer's Quarterly Federal Tax Return or Claim for Refund, and provide supporting documentation demonstrating their eligibility. Necessary forms and documentation. To claim the Employee Retention Credit for 2020, eligible employers should file Form 941, Employer's Quarterly Federal Tax Returns. However, if they have already filed their quarterly returns without claiming the ERC, they can amend them using Form 941X. It is also important to keep accurate records of employee wages and employment taxes paid during the qualifying period and any other supporting documentation that validates eligibility for claiming the credit. For example, businesses must document how much qualified wages were paid to each employee for every calendar quarter in which they are claimed. Additionally, businesses may need to provide proof of a significant decline in gross receipts or full or partial suspension of operations due to COVID-19 if required by the IRS when asked. Deadline for claiming the ERC. Employers eligible for the Employee Retention Credit should act quickly to claim it. The deadline for claiming the ERC is approaching, and qualifying employers can still claim the credit until April 15, 2024 for wages paid in 2020 and April 15, 2025 for wages paid in the first two, third, and fourth quarters of 2021. To maximize your eligibility and avoid missing out on these significant benefits of claiming ERC, reduce tax liability, increase cash flow, and ability to retain employees, keeping accurate records is essential. Seek professional guidance if needed and consider retroactive claims as well. Changes to the ERC for 2021. In 2021, the ERC was extended through December 31st with increased credit amounts and expanded eligibility criteria. Read on to learn more about these changes. Extension of the ERC through December 31st, 2021. The Employee Retention Credit has been extended through December 31st, 2021. This means eligible employers can still claim the credit for wages paid after June 30th, 2021, and before January 1st, 2022. The Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021 expanded the ERC retroactively to March 12, 2020. Employers can claim the ERC for qualified wages paid in Q1, Q2, and Q3 of this year. Additionally, the full Employee Retention Tax Credit has been increased from a maximum of $5,000 per employee in total to $7,000 per employee per the same quarter and calendar quarter after that. Increased credit amount and availability of advance payments. The Employee Retention Credit has been extended through December 31st, 2021, and there's good news for eligible employers. The Employee Retention Tax Credit amount has increased from a maximum of $5,000 per full Employee Retention Tax Credit work to $7,000 per full Employee Retention Tax Credit per calendar quarter. This means businesses can claim more money back on their taxes if they have experienced financial difficulties due to the pandemic. Additionally, eligible employers can receive advance payments of up to 70% of anticipated ERC credits based on prior quarter gross receipts for the current quarter. For example, if a small to medium-sized business qualifies for an ERC credit worth $20,000 in Q4 of 2021 based on their wages paid and declines in gross receipts compared to pre-pandemic levels, they could receive an advance payment of up to $14,000 to help cover these costs before filing their income tax return again in 2022. Expansion of eligibility criteria. The ERC has seen several significant changes in eligibility criteria for 2021, making many small to medium-sized businesses eligible. The Consolidated Appropriations Act 2021 expanded the eligibility requirements, allowing more employers to qualify for the credit. Under this new provision, businesses with a decline in gross receipts of at least 20% in any quarter compared to the same quarter in 2019 can claim the ERC. This expansion means that companies that did not experience a full or partial suspension of operations may still be eligible for the credit as long as they meet these criteria. Understanding the differences between ERC and PPP. It's important to understand the differences between ERC and PPP, including eligibility criteria and allowed uses of funds, before claiming either credit. Eligibility requirements and allowed uses of funds. Understanding the eligibility requirements and allowed uses of funds for the Employee Retention Credit and the Paycheck Protection Program is crucial for small to medium-sized business owners seeking financial assistance during these challenging times. The following table compares eligibility between these two relief programs to help you determine which option suits your business needs best. It's important to note that businesses can take advantage of ERC and PPP, provided they do not claim the ERC for the same wages used to qualify for PPP loan forgiveness. Interaction between ERC and PPP. The Employee Retention Credit and the Paycheck Protection Program were designed to help businesses affected by COVID-19. While employers can claim both, there are restrictions on overlapping benefits. If you receive a PPP loan, you can also claim the ERC if you do not use the same wages for both programs. For example, an eligible employer received $100,000 in PPP funds and paid qualified wages of $200,000 during that same period. The employer could use $100,000 of those wages to forgive their PPP loan and then take the ERC on the remaining $100,000 in qualified wages. Common mistakes to avoid when claiming the ERC. Employers must avoid making mistakes such as improper calculation of qualified wages, failure to file amended tax returns when necessary, and overlapping ERC and PPP claims. Improper calculation of qualified wages. One common mistake to avoid when claiming the ERC is an improper calculation of qualified wages. To claim the credit, employers must determine which wages qualify and what constitutes eligible healthcare costs. It's crucial that businesses accurately calculate their eligible wages and expenses, including their payroll taxes, costs, and health insurance premiums. Failing to properly calculate these amounts could result in an underclaimed credit or even trigger an audit by the IRS. Failure to file amended tax returns. One common mistake businesses make when claiming the Employee Retention Credit is failing to file amended tax returns. To claim the ERC retroactively for qualifying wages paid after March 12, 2020, employers should amend their applicable employment tax returns using Form 941X. For example, imagine a small retailer who experienced a significant decline in gross receipts due to COVID-19 and is eligible for the ERC. However, they failed to file an amended tax return reflecting the credit amount they are entitled to receive. To avoid this mistake and ensure you receive all available tax credits and refunds, working with a professional accountant or tax advisor familiar with ERC rules and regulations is important. Overlapping ERC and PPP claims. Businesses can claim both the Employee Retention Credit and Paycheck Protection Program loans, but there are some limitations on how they can be used. Businesses cannot use both programs for the same wages or payroll costs. For example, if a business uses PPP funds to cover payroll costs during a certain period, those same wages cannot also be used to claim the ERC for that same period. It's important for small to medium-sized business owners to understand these restrictions in order to maximize their benefits from both programs. Seeking professional guidance when applying for these programs can help ensure compliance with regulations and avoid any potential issues down the line. Tips for maximizing your ERC claim. To maximize your ERC claim, keep accurate records of qualified wages paid and seek professional guidance from a tax expert or accountant, especially when navigating the interaction between ERC and PPP. Keeping accurate records. To ensure that you maximize your Employee Retention Credit claim, it is important to keep accurate records of all qualifying wages paid to employees. This includes tracking the dates and amounts of payments made and which specific employees are being paid. The importance of accurate records cannot be overstated when claiming tax credits like the ERC. By maintaining detailed and organized records, businesses can easily identify eligible wages and determine the total amount they can claim on their tax returns. This reduces the risk of errors and ensures that they do not miss out on any potential credits they may be entitled to. Seeking professional guidance. Navigating the ins and outs of claiming the Employee Retention Credit can be overwhelming for small to medium-sized business owners. Seeking professional guidance from a tax professional, accountant, or attorney with experience in this area can help ensure you are eligible for the ERC and maximize your claim amount. With retroactive claims available for qualifying wages paid after March 12, 2020, seeking professional guidance can help identify potential opportunities to make up missed credits from previous quarters. Additionally, a tax professional or accountant may provide valuable advice on keeping accurate records of all qualified wages paid and related expenses such as health insurance and benefits costs. Considering retroactive claims. If you missed out on claiming the Employee Retention Credit for 2020, don't worry, it's not too late. The ERC can be taken retroactively for qualifying wages paid after March 12, 2020. If your business was eligible for tax amounts but did not claim the ERC last year, you can still file an amended tax return to receive the credit. For example, say your small business experienced a significant decline in gross receipts due to COVID-19 and was eligible for the ERC in Q2 of 2020 but didn't claim it then. You could still amend your employment tax returns and get back up to $5,000 per employee in qualified wages paid only during that same calendar quarter. Benefits of claiming the ERC. Claiming the ERC can provide small to medium-sized business owners with a reduced tax liability, employment tax deposits, increased cash flow, and the ability to retain employees during difficult economic times. Reduced tax liability. One significant benefit of claiming the Employee Retention Credit is reduced tax liability. The ERC is a refundable tax credit that allows eligible employers to take employer credits to offset their employment tax liabilities with qualified wages paid to employees during certain periods affected by COVID-19. This means that instead of paying payroll taxes only on the full amount of these qualified wages, businesses can reduce their tax bills by up to 50% of these paid qualified wages. For example, if an eligible employer paid $10,000 in qualified wages for a given quarter and claimed the maximum ERC of $5,000, they would only need to pay taxes on the remaining $5,000. Increased cash flow. One significant benefit of claiming the Employee Retention Credit is increased cash flow. This refundable tax credit can help offset employment taxes, reducing a business's overall tax liability and freeing up funds that can be used for other purposes, such as operations or expansion. For example, if an eligible employer claims the maximum ERC amount of $5,000 per employee for 2020 and has 50 qualifying employees, they could receive a total credit of $250,000. Furthermore, employers can claim advance payments of up to 70% of their estimated ERC amounts for each calendar quarter in anticipation of future qualified wages. This means that eligible employers may receive immediate advance payment from the Internal Revenue Service, which can further improve their cash position while providing additional liquidity to support ongoing operations. Ability to retain employees. One of the primary benefits of claiming the Employee Retention Credit is the ability to retain employees. This tax credit can help businesses keep their staff on, even when facing financial difficulties due to the pandemic. For example, if an eligible employer paid an employee $10,000 in qualified wages during a specific period and claimed the ERC, they would receive a $5,000 tax credit. This can be a significant incentive for businesses struggling with cash flow issues or who have had to reduce hours or furlough workers. Conclusion and summary on can you still claim the Employee Retention Credit for the 2020 tax year? In conclusion, claiming the Employee Retention Credit can provide significant financial relief for eligible employees of small to medium-sized businesses impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The ERC is a refundable tax credit against certain employment taxes equal to 50% of the qualified employee wages. Employers should keep accurate records and seek professional guidance when determining their eligibility and calculating their claim amount. With deadlines approaching in April 2024 for the 2020 ERC and April 2025 for the 2021 ERC, qualifying employers must take advantage of this opportunity as soon as possible. Good news, there is still time to file. The Employee Retention Tax Credit can still be claimed retroactively and there is still time to file, even in 2023, 2024, and 2025 for the past tax years.
As you can see, navigating the Employee Retention Credit program is very complex and confusing to try to figure it out on your own. Even on the IRS ERC FAQ pages, it says, "This page is not current." There have been several years of updates and changes to this IRS tax credit already, including 4 congressional acts and 5 updated guidances from the IRS, totaling over 3,900 pages. Who has time to sift through all that information, let alone decipher some of the confusing language and rulings? In order to stay compliant with current IRS ERC rules and regulations, expert specialized help is highly recommended. Even if your business received an SBA PPP loan, you are still eligible for the ERC credit. If you think you may not qualify, it's worth a conversation to see if your business does. Let us assist you with a complete employee retention credit process, or if you might be stuck on filling out the IRS 941X forms correctly on your own. We are here to help. Stay safe, stay compliant, keep more of your refund. Email us at support@disasterloanadvisors.com or call us toll-free at 877-463-9777 extension 3. Or visit us on the web at www.disasterloanadvisors.com/ERC for complete details on the Employee Retention Credit Program for your business.